I know people hate spot burning, but it's like, if you Google gold medal waters in Colorado and do your own research, you can find the spot and possibly catch like the biggest fish of your life. And most people, the biggest fish of their life is like a 20-inch brown. It's not for me. We got big numbers, but like you could catch like pretty healthy colored up fish.
All right, I think I'm deep enough, but we'll see.
I think fly fishing is this thing of like, go have an adventure and like learn and sail how to fish. Go up to alpine lakes and be like, we didn't catch anything today, but we saw a bunch of fish. Or go fish a tiny creek and be like, we found monsters in this creek. Like, I think fly fishing should be more like adventure-based, like story-based with your own story. You don't even have to film it.
I'm like, hey, can the biggest trout come in here and eat? And I promise I'll let you go.
Get up and go, put your body in gear. You're in control, so grab the steering wheel. Open the door, find a new frontier. Get up and go, get out of here. Get out of here. Get up and go. Get up and go.
It's beautiful. It's so peaceful and quiet out here. It's just, you can't beat it. And you get solitude, there's birds, there's fish rising. That's all you can ask for. I like a reward at the end of a hard hike. But in the summertime, yeah, this is definitely my go-to if I have the time and I'm able to get out here and away. I prefer the alpine for sure. Do the rivers in the fall and the winter, but summertime is all about the alpine lakes for me. We did, it wasn't too bad, a couple miles, some steep elevation. I mean, it's tempting to stop at that first lake when you've been hiking and you've been going straight up and then you finally see the lake and you're excited to fish. But there are a lot of people at that one. And then we went up to the second one, which obviously you got to just keep going up and up and up. And there was only like one group of people at that one. And then by the time we hit the third and the fourth and now the fifth, there's no one up here. So if you're not scared of pushing a little bit further and going a little bit higher up, it's the same as fishing a river. The more pressured they are, the more spooky they are, and the more wary they get up here. So much harder to get them, especially on the dry, which that's the goal. Who doesn't love a cutthroat on the dry? That's ideal. One of the first things that I do when I get to an alpine lake is look for risers, see if there are fish coming up. I've seen a few, which is really exciting. So I'll probably start off with a little hopper, tiny little hopper beetle pattern, and then I'll probably do a dropper under it. Start with a chironomid, that's my go-to for alpine. Sometimes you can get scuds, depends on the lake, and then if we're not getting a lot of topwater action, maybe switch to an indicator and try and fish some of those drop-offs. I also like to try and sight them when I first come up, instead of, it's tempting to just come to the lake and get excited and just start fishing, but I like to kind of walk around, see if I can see I'm cruising. One just rose right there. So I gotta be quick, I gotta get this tied on. Got him, oh. Just a little guy on the dry. Oh, mind your hook set. It's good though. Hey, buddy. Woo! On the board.
Welcome to Colorado. Come on in, we'll show you some flies. How's it going, guys? Harlan at Cutthroat Anglers here. We're gonna go over some flies here at Cutthroat Anglers that we're fishing this time of year. We got a huge selection, pretty much everything you need to fish anywhere out west. So let's go over a few of my favorites and kind of where we'd fish them and why I would fish them. So one that we're definitely gonna have in our box this time of year is gonna be a little yellow Sally nymph. The Iron Sally, super popular fly, great as a little dropper fly, little stone fly. Another classic that you'll almost see any guide anywhere in the West putting on a nymph rig or a hopper dropper rig is going to be the old Pat's Rubber Legs. Classic fly. We call it the pickle here. So this olive, it's going to resemble a good golden stone pattern. One of my favorites. So as we move down the line, we're going to kind of skip over the beta section right here. That's going to be more of your shoulder season, fall, springtime. And we're going to get more into our hoppers. One of my favorite hoppers is going to be a custom of ours. I think you can fish it as a golden stone dry too, but it's going to be Reed's, one of our guides ties, Reed's Rogue Chubby, the great little hopper pattern for fishing, double dry flies, single hoppers on the banks and stuff like that. Another popular one that I know you guys have heard about is going to be the Chubby Chernobyl. Comes in so many different colors. Royal Chubby, great for holding up tungsten nymphs. Gonna mimic hoppers, gonna mimic big golden stones. So just a good generic dry dropper fly to use. Moving on, we're gonna get more into our PMDs. PMDs are still around right now. We're gonna fish the nymphs, we're gonna fish the dry flies. A new one we just got in that's been fishing well is the Parawolf PMD. You're gonna trail this behind a small hopper, you're gonna trail it behind a drake. But a really good small little PMD dry. And then kind of the last bug group we're fishing, this is going to be your DJL green drake. You could hang a small dropper underneath this, but I like fishing it as like a double dry fly or single dry fly. And then the other one I really like, this Fast Water. And this one has some foam in it, so much better if you're fishing some tungsten nymphs underneath it. Fast Water drake, hopper dropper fishing tight to the bank. Throwing some sort of PMD caddis jigs underneath. We had a ton of flies here at Cutthroat Anglers, so swing on by and we'll help you out.
I guess Augusta Gorge is known for the salmonfly hatch in June, which is a large stoneflies that hatch and brings a big fish to the edges. And so you can, catch some pretty nice fish on, really simple single dry flies on 1X. So the trip today, we're doing 14 miles in one day, so we'll be cooking along. I have a couple different canyon stretches and 2 open areas. One's in Ute Park, and then the last 4 miles of the trip comes out of the canyon. Get on that outside channel there. There you go. This is igneous rock, so billions of years old. Granite, gneiss, and schist is the makeup. So a few rapids, a lot of nice runs, and probably catch primarily browns.
Just a little guy.
Probably like an 80-20 split.
Splash.
Browns to rainbows, but rainbows have come back pretty well down here, and we're tend to see quite a few more than I did, say 15 years ago.
Whirling disease had impacted many of our trout schemes very significantly and had reduced natural reproduction of rainbow trout. In recent decades, we have stocked whirling disease-resistant rainbows that have allowed us to restore many of our rainbow trout fisheries. The Black Canyon of the Gunnison River provides great opportunities for anglers and a great fishery, in large part due to cold water releases from Crystal Reservoir, which is located just upstream. Those cold releases have extended trout habitat downstream and provided a great fishery through the confluence of the North Fork of the Gunnison River. It is hard to access some reaches of the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, but fishing opportunities once you get to those areas are very good.
Everywhere you look, you have moving water on the banks, and that just makes for great hopper fishing.
There he is. Beautiful.
The gorge has some really unique geography. It's one of the only places in the world where you can stand on the edge of the canyon and look 2,000 feet straight down, which makes it kind of a trout haven because it's pretty hot here. You know, we're right on the edge of the desert, and trout have a hard time. Like we're just on the border of catfish land. But the gorge really, you know, shelters those fish from the elements. In the bottom of the Black Canyon, it's kind of like an isolated ecosystem. There are a lot of different species of bugs that anglers dream of. We have salmon flyhatch every year. There's 4 species of cicada, so we have almost a yearly hatch of cicada. And then in the summer, they have so many different terrestrials. So these fish get quite large, and it's a 2,000-foot scramble down to the bottom. So your average angler is going to go over and fish the Gunnison above the gorge. So these fish very rarely see a fly, you know, except for the, you know, extreme backpacker that can make it down there, or Black Canyon anglers, which run float trips down it.
This is my 15th season with Black Canyon Anglers. A big part of it is the people I work with. So a lot of these guys that, you know, over a decade with down here now, and when you do multi-day trips, you become pretty tight. So, you know, like hanging them out keeps me young. You know, I think if I stop doing this and you're not as active, it's probably not a good thing. And, you know, we don't have as much traffic down here. Once you push off the beach, it spreads out pretty quickly. And it's a great fishery. And the company's awesome. They have a great farm, 1,400 acres, 2.75 miles of river frontage, cabins, you know, lodge, dining with the chef. So when you have that setting to come out and meet your clients who got in the night before and got settled in, it's a pretty nice perk.
My name's Deanna Wright. I'm the executive chef here at Gunnison River Farms and Black Canyon Anglers. This property is super special. It's right along the Gunnison River. We're the only riverside lodge on the lower Gunnison. It's a secret, hidden desert oasis for sure. The property dates back to like the late 1800s. It was an old homestead site, and then after that it was a working orchard. Right now we've got about 14 acres of irrigated fruit. We've got 2 gardens, and then we have a little flock of chickens. We also raise sheep. We've got about 40 head, and so I actually serve grass-fed lamb here on property that was raised just outside your cabin door. So it's pretty special and unique as far as true like farm-to-table dining experience. It's kind of like a chef's dream, honestly, to get to have access to so much amazing like fresh herbs and vegetables to kind of create whatever I want to create here. My food is mostly, I would say it's Western Colorado. Like I try to really instill like a sense of place in my food. So everything that I serve, if we can't grow it here or won't grow it here, I can get it from like a local farmer. And then there's a lot of great ranchers in the area that we can source our meat from. And yeah, if it's something that doesn't feel like Colorado doesn't grow in Colorado, I won't serve it. We have a pretty long growing season, I would say like May through October, kind of our first frost. So that goes really well with our river season because we're here pretty much every day, June through the end of October, feeding people and then getting them on the river. Most of our clients, they'll come spend the night with us, have a meal, stay in one of our, beautiful cabins the night before they get on the river, and then they go on their 3-day river trip. They're camping in the gorge. It's a real wilderness experience. Then they get off the river, they come back, they get to sleep in a nice cozy bed, have another meal with us, enjoy, our bar program where we make everything, all the mixers, syrups, garnishes, brandied cherries, all of that we make here. Truly from the beginning of the meal to the end of the meal, everything is made in-house. We get a lot of people who come down and they're kind of expecting a hamburger, and I do a 4-course meal. Everything is based on what's in season right now, what's growing the best. And I make everything from scratch, all the breads, sauces, desserts, everything comes from my hands, from our hands. And I really believe you can taste that, when you eat the food here.
Oh, it's a nicer fish too.
Our native trout in Colorado is a cutthroat trout. Originally, cutthroat trout were the only type of trout found within Colorado. Things changed significantly in the late 1800s when miners came flooding into Colorado and overfished many of our streams and lakes. Fish were restocked into those streams to replenish fisheries and provide fish for people to catch and eat. And many of the fish that came in, especially after railroads starting in 1869, were non-native trout, including rainbow trout, brook trout, and brown trout, with the exception of some smaller headwater streams that still maintained cutthroat trout populations.
Oh yeah, son.
We are working to reestablish cutthroats in many streams to ensure that they continue to persist for future generations. So we do work actively to remove non-native trout from stream reaches and to restore cutthroat trout. Many of our high lakes originally didn't have any fish present in them. They have been stocked, though, with fish, and we stock many of our lakes by air. Starting in 2001, we did shift most of our high lakes over to cutthroat trout plants. So this provides the best opportunity to find cutthroat trout in the state by targeting and fishing at high lakes found throughout the state.
Oh, I had him. Oh. He was just cruising right along. Oh, refusal. Oh, he refused it again. He's being picky. Oh, he refused it and then came back and decided he did want it. They're working to restore greenbacks to a lot of these lakes, but these lakes get deep. So most of them have a shelf, so it's real shallow, and then you can actually see the drop off, and that's kind of where a lot of the fish will cruise right along that drop off while they're feeding. And in the winter, they go down. They go way deep down. The hunger down there, while it ices over, you do get fish kills at some of these lakes sometimes. So it's sometimes a gamble when you go out to the Alpine. A lake that had fish last year might not have a lot of fish. And then their lifespans are relatively short. And they grow slowly. So a lot of these lakes will cycle. So every couple of years, like it might be really good. You have some bigger fish. The fish are thriving. And then that population gets older and they start to die off. And then the smaller fish, you have to wait for them to obviously mature and hit that same size again. So it's fun because the lakes are so cyclical. So it's never the same year after year. You never really know what you're gonna get until you come up here. It's never a sure thing, but it is always a great sign, obviously, to see a bunch of fish around, see them swimming, see them rising. And this is the time of year, it's post ice off. So the lakes ice off, and then you hit the spawning season, and then after that they're pretty much just eating, feeding all summer, because their opportunity to feed is pretty short. So they got to make it worth it before winter comes back. Woo! Buzzer beater, let's go! And now the storm rolls in. We got a dip. We've got a pretty dark cloud coming up behind us, and we got no tree cover up here, so not the place you want to be if a thunderstorm rolls in. So we're kind of watching the cloud, seeing which direction it's going to move, and if it starts to thunder and make a big storm roll in, we're gonna. So the cloud we mentioned before, it did hit us. So we got a little bit of hail, a little bit of rain, and some thunder, so we kind of booked it. Oh, we came down the first two lakes, or the upper two lakes, so we got hail twice, thunder, and then we had a big old flash of lightning right overhead, so we got a little spooked. Came down here, and now we can fish this lake and have our little hiding cave if things start to go south. So you can find us in the cave or on the lake.
Yeah. We've moved up to bean size. Bean size hail. Ow.
I'd cover your head. That'll break a fly rod.
Fishing this way's better. Right on the tip of the ear though? That stings.
Headed to the cave. We keep trying to evade the hail, but it seems like it might be here to stay this time. It's gotten a little bigger. A little painful to be out in, so hunkering down, we'll see what happens. We might be hiking in hail, but that's part of the game for alpine fishing. This is what it's like.
So we're fishing here at the CNR, or the catch and release, or the hog trough, on the Taylor River. We're just below the Taylor River Reservoir and the dam up here. There's some big fish out here. The state record rainbow was pulled out of here, and I believe the old state record for the brown was pulled out of here. So there's big fish in here. We'll see if we can get a couple.
All right, that means it's time to move. My name is Elon Stribling, born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I do a bunch of things. I am a fly fishing guide. I am an environmental educator. I work for nonprofits. I'm a volunteer. I am a stand-up comedian. I'm a lot of things. So Steve Irwin was my idol growing up. He was like one of the coolest people alive, and so I just grew up thinking like I want to save animals. I want to teach people about wildlife, which I kind of do now. I have a yellow notebook with jokes that I wrote from like high school time, but never actually did stand up. Loved public speaking, but never did stand up. And then when I got to college, I was just at like a really dark place in my life where I felt like alone. I felt like I didn't have anyone. I was like finding my way. And then I was like, you know, listening to Bill Burr's podcast. I was like, he talks about doing stand up and how happy he is. Like, maybe I can try it. And so went to an open mic, was like, man, these people are funny. I'm going to try it next week. Tried it the next week, crushed it. People were coming up like, oh man, that was so good. How long you been doing it? And I was like, oh, first time. And they were like, that's so great. And then kept doing it. And then the next like 3 months I sucked. I don't think I ate.
I didn't even know I had him on there at first.
I mean, I don't think I ate. I had like one good set, but I just kept doing it. It's like something that you can like fiddle with as you keep doing it. So yeah, that was 5 years ago. And every night if I can be on stage every night, I absolutely would.
Does this? I don't know what the vibe of this fish is. Every fish has a different vibe. Oh, and that fish said, you know what? I'm over it. I'm over whatever you guys got going on.
My belief always here is smaller, and if you can put it in front of their face, they'll eat it. But that's the thing of like, can you get a good drift that goes, you know, right in front of them? And when I say right in front of them, I mean to the point where all they have to do is, they're not going up, they're not going down, they're not going to the left or the right, they're just opening their mouth, turning their head, opening their mouth. So if you can get a good drift, get a fly in front of them. There's so many fish in here that I think a lot of people come and they see fish and they just start casting at them, but they're not feeding fish. They're not fish that are actively feeding. They're just, maybe they'll open their mouth, but whenever I come up to the Taylor, I always try to find fish that are actively feeding. Yeah, I mean, fly fishing and stand-up is like almost identical. Both of them are not needed. Both of them are useless. Yeah, I guess if you get skunked on a river, it's not like someone's gonna be like, boo, you suck. Or maybe someone may drive by and be like, have you caught any fish? And the worst part is when you're not catching fish and someone goes, you catching fish? You're like, not today. They go, that's why it's called fishing and not catching. That's the same thing as someone going, boo, you suck, and throwing tomatoes at you. So, I mean, they're both like your own choices that you made. Some days you show up and, you know, first joke, first fly, it crushes. And you're like, I was born to do this. And then some days you go to the same river the next day, do the same joke the next day, and it doesn't work. And you go, why am I doing this? So they both are, not that they're useless, but they're just like, no one's a first responder with fishing or comedy. But it's like it's a beautiful thing to be a part of the fishing community and the comedy community.
Like I always thought fly fishing was like a tedious way to catch small fish, to put it shortly. You know, I had figured out that you can get pretty big trout on power bait, and you know, it's like whatever, it's boring, but you can drink while you do it. Glass has a way of sort of rounding out its own corners. I mean, it's a liquid that we're sculpting, so it wants to be rounded, bubbly. You know, it kind of wants to cartoonify itself if you can't stop it. So what I was making in college was very much like I would say gift store style, you know, trinkets that you would find in like a flea market in Mexico or something. And you know, in that time is, you know, kind of when I discovered drugs and alcohol. I had always been looking for that place to fit in, and I had found it in the glass studio, but I didn't have a lot of peers in glassblowing. And I found that in the art scene in college. You know, it's like you smoke weed, you go to parties, and that just completely consumed me. And there was probably a better part of a decade where, you know, I ran back to Colorado with my tail between my legs after college, and I was still blowing glass, but it was just a means to get enough money to go to the liquor store every day. You know, I would go into work, make some cups, you know, make a couple bowls, you know, and then go drink half a gallon of whiskey or however much I could get. Through that period, I was still making fish, but it was more of like a pipe dream of an age past. Like I had watched my peers, you know, build shops of their own and really, you know, do the thing for real. Really towards the end, I was having daily seizures, and I kind of, you know, you find this recipe of like, okay, you need this much booze in your system to avoid a seizure, but you can't drink this much before a certain time of day, otherwise you're like incapacitated. And, you know, it all culminated in this really pretty horrific injury that I don't know how it happened, but I ended up in the hospital, and it was like the do or die moment where it's like I get sober now or, you know, I'm going nowhere fast. And so I reached out for help. And so I went out to Salt Lake City, got sober. You know, I was like awake for the first time in my adult life. And when I left rehab, I went to a sober house, and it just so happened to be in Carbondale, Colorado, right next to the Roaring Fork River. And my 8 roommates were all fly fishermen. And COVID happened. None of us had jobs. We had all just gotten out of rehab. And so it was like my first week in the sober house, and I was playing video games or something, and these guys handed me a fly rod and said, we're going up to the frying pan. And it was February, 10 degrees, wind blowing sideways, and they hand me this pair of duck hunting waders. And the trout up there are so big, the water in the flats is shallower than these fish are tall. So we could see these backs of these huge cut bows. My friend Justin landed one of these fish, and it was, you know, close to 26 inches and just like the most vibrant red and green and it super fascinating morphology. And it was at that moment that I was like, okay, this is what I have been looking for. You know, it's like I've been looking in the bottom of a bottle or the back room of a bar, but like this feeling is what I've been missing.
A lot of history here. All the holes have been named. They were named by Tuck Squire in the late 1940s, so it's pretty cool to kind of, you know, enwrap yourself in that kind of stuff, as well as the excellent fishing right here. So there's several different opportunities. We kind of consider it to be the lower, the middle, and the upper. We're going to fish the lower today, which is going to be from the family hole up to the emerald pool here. It's just a classic piece of trout water, a lot of riffle runs, pools, tail outs. It's just a fabulous place. I've probably done more guide trips in this section of the canyon than anywhere else. It rained in here good last night. You can tell everything's really wet. I'm Pat Dorsey from Evergreen, Colorado, and I've been a professional guide now for 32 years, mainly in Cheeseman Canyon. The South Platte that flows through the fabled Cheeseman Canyon is no doubt one of the best tailwaters in the western United States. So this one, you're not going to have to get real high. You just got to get it right there at 1 o'clock. Yep. And then just let it drift down in there. The hardest challenge here is going to be landing them. Its landscapes are second to none, and the wild trout. We catch browns and rainbows. It's a self-sustaining wild trout fishery that's just been an absolute joy for me to spend the last 32 years guiding and sharing my passion with others. Certainly not one of the easier places to catch trout in the western U.S. It's technical, but very rewarding, and clients have come back year after year to share in what is one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. Now you're ready for an upstream, man. Hit it. Bottom. Yeah, it's bottom. If I had only one day left to fish, it would be in Cheeseman Canyon. So I felt compelled to share that with others and wrote a book that encompasses all three forks of the South Platte, the North Fork, the Middle Fork, and the South Fork, which Cheeseman Canyon flows through. So I just wanted to help others be successful. That's a money drift right there. You know, I've learned a lot by not catching fish in this river. So I wanted to share those failures, and hopefully they'll turn out to be other people's successes. Well, that one moved out just a little bit. So next time, let's go into that little bit darker water there. Hit it, hit it. You know, after 32 years of guiding, people say, man, Pat, you're still really passionate about what you do. And I am. I still love it as much as I did when I started the very first day. And why? Well, because I get to fish through my anglers every day. That's what's so fun, is when they catch a fish, I catch a fish. And I just love the challenge that every day brings, you know, with the varying flows in Cheeseman Canyon, the small flies. It's a very technical fishery. So it's just one of those places I consider to be, you know, one of the best classrooms in the West. And every day I got to be ready to go. And that's what really brings me a lot of satisfaction. You know, we're all after the big ones, of course, but I'll tell you what, I get as excited about these little guys as I do the big ones, because these are the future of our sport right here. It's an absolute beautiful fish. Now, Cheeseman is a very humbling place. There you go, right there. It's a gin clear tailwater. Water temperatures are very cold. The aquatic life is small and requires anglers to fish with spiderweb thin tippets. Yeah, it's a good fish. Okay, let's back over here to the shallow stuff. And a lot of sight fishing applications here, which is beautiful, but it's certainly not one of the easier places. Little brownie though. You know, there's a common belief among South Platte regulars that if you can catch fish in the canyon, fishing is a little bit easier everywhere else. And so a lot of people lose their fish in the canyon. It's common to lose about 50% of your fish in the canyon because we're fishing with very small flies and very light tippets. So don't get discouraged. You got to hook them to lose them. But if you're landing half your fish in Cheeseman, you're doing a great job. Hit it. There, we got him. Okay, nice job. Let's get him on the reel now. This is a great fish. Watch this rock right here. There we go. We got all day. We're going to let him run a little bit now.
Oh my God.
That was a big one. Let's take a look at that real quick.
I call Deckers the of Colorado fishing rivers, because everyone kind of knows where it is, but people don't really know what to do with it when they get there. That's a joke for everyone. Everyone gets it. No one's not gonna get it. Fly Fish America, come to the go hit the Grand Tetons and then come down to Deckers. I mean, fishing on Taylor has been, it's been like pretty good. I've never fished out here in sort of the mid of summer. We had a pretty sweet fishing day. A lot of healthy fish, a lot of really, really pretty fish. Sort of doing the San Juan shuffle, fish behind us, catching fish, healthy fish, pretty colors on all these fish. They get to eat those micey shrimp, and like, it's a tailwater, so they get a constant amount of food. So their colors are always pretty, they're always strong, they're always fighting, and they grow, you know, pretty fast.
A little behind the scenes here. Put on a Pat's rubber legs. I wasn't gonna do any fishing this morning, but these guys were catching such nice fish. I thought I'd set the camera down for a minute. And yeah, the third cast, they like the Pats down here. Yes, sir. Woohoo! Holy smokes, dude.
When Taylor Park Reservoir was built in 1937, flows were released primarily to meet irrigation needs for water users in the Uncompahgre Valley around Montrose, Colorado. And those releases often didn't meet the needs of the fishery. It wasn't until conservationists, fish managers, and water users came together in the 1970s that we established a really quality trout fishery that allows us to really optimize summer flows for trout growth, for macroinvertebrate production, and to ensure that there's adequate flow through the winter period to allow for good reproduction of trout.
You see that? He was reeling in. He was reeling in, and the fish came and grabbed it as he was reeling. That's called skill, baby. Yeah, that's right.
The Gunnison and Taylor Rivers were added as gold medal waters starting in 2023, although they met gold medal standard criteria for a couple decades. To be a gold medal water, a stream needs to have at least 60 pounds of trout per acre and at least 12 trout per acre over 14 inches in length. The Taylor River greatly exceeds the gold medal standard with up to 200 trout over 14 inches per acre and up to 450 pounds of trout per acre.
We got to fish Harmel's this trip, and I've driven past this property so many times and been like, oh man, all that water looks really fishy. And it is. It holds a lot of fish. The staff at Harmel's is like super sweet. They have their own fly shop, and the guides are great. So, I mean, look, if you match with a girl on Tinder and you're like, hey, let's go on a date, this is the place to take her. Bring the family out here. You can have them go horseback riding, rafting. Like, it feels very wild, but you also have like a restaurant. There's like a lounge area for kids and families. You still kind of have service in most spots. So it is like very family friendly, but I mean, that is like kind of what I think the Colorado fishery is becoming. It's becoming this sort of not just hardcore angler, but a hardcore angler plus the community that they're attached with, you know, because it's like, you kind of get this, the fishing person, like we've been fishing all day. Since sunlight, we've been fishing. But then you kind of also have this like luxury, nice places to stay, good food. You got service, you can do work stuff, whatever, but you can also like fish, like and like fish hard, which is what I'm all about. Like, if I can fish hard, I'll fish sunrise to sun. Like, I'm mad right now that we're not fishing.
Rally? Pardon, let's catch this right side.
Okay.
Get these ripples coming down. I'm just going to slide across it. Have you ticked bottom at all with that rig yet?
No.
Okay. You may need to go a little heavier. Start off lighter and just trying to get something that's getting down and going to get their attention.
Fishing in the Gunnison Gorge is an interesting experience. We just missed the big salmon fly hatch in June, but the fish seem to remember that, because even though there weren't any big bugs coming off, we had a lot of success right against the rock walls with the big dry dropper and a lot of fish coming up for the big chubbies. It was interesting having so many fish in between these big sections of rapids. Because even when we were going through the rapids, you can fish the pocket water as the guide is running the waves. And there were a few times when I towed a brown trout down through a section of waves, which I've never experienced before. There was one section where I saw the guide lining up for the left line, and I was thinking, this is gonna be bad. The cameraman is flying up in the air, and we almost broke a rod on the wall. As you get out of the big igneous cliff section, you know, the landscape opened up. There's a lot of tall grass on the sides, and so most of the fish in the lower section line themselves up on the bank and just wait for grasshoppers to fall out. So it's essentially, you know, a hopper-dropper river, you know, from midsummer into you know, late fall. Which if you're looking to fish a big piece of foam, basically a bobber with a hook on it, the Gunnison is the river for you. Nice fish. Solid. It's a lot like fishing, except we're guaranteed to find big fish.
Yeah.
You can't touch the glass with your hands.
Yeah.
You know, you have to feel everything through tools.
Gotcha.
And so I feel like it's a very natural transition.
How'd you get into that? Is that something you just...
I was apprenticed when I was young.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you know, kind of a wayward kid. And yeah, it's not hard to get a teenage boy to be really excited about lava on a stick.
Yeah.
For the last 4 years, since I got sober, I've been going to the water, seeing interesting fish, trying to find the most unique specimens I can, and then taking it back into the studio and trying to essentially fight with physics to make it work in glass. Around the time that I got sober and decided to start redesigning the trout is when I decided to make that the business. I had no orders, all I had was a dream. You know, I had a skill set built over 15 years and a vision that I could be the glass trout guy. My now wife, Indigo, she was there for the grind every step of the way. In the beginning, we were sort of following in others' footsteps until we had gotten to a point where I feel really confident in saying that we are making the most realistic glass fish in the world. And, you know, people started noticing. We would try 10 different things to try and improve the fish. One of them worked. You know, we would scrap everything and then work off that, try 10 more things. And over the years, we've really honed these techniques that we're using today. And we're even to the point where you can't buy tools to do what we're doing. Like I have to make a lot of my own, you know, custom sculpting tools to get the shapes that I get. To be able to go from spending my last dime on a pair of glass tweezers to be able to have Indigo quit her day job and, you know, live on this beautiful property with our studio 100 feet from our house and wake up in the morning and say, all right, on today's docket, we got a spawning male brown and a rainbow, and tomorrow we've got a brook trout and a cutthroat. And, you know, every day to be able to do what we want to do is really, it's special and it's also quite rare. You know, so I'm very, I'm very aware of how lucky we are and how we managed to find the niche we found at the time we found it. And that we are no longer starving artists.
On the stonefly. Beautiful little rainbow here. This is about a 3 or 4 year old fish. They'll live to be about 7 years in the canyon, and we'll see rainbows that get anywhere from 7 inches, 6 inches their first year, all the way to 20 inches. A 20-inch fish is really a prized possession here in the canyon, but this is a little smaller than average, but really a lovely fish right here. Anybody would catch that fish any day of the week. He's pretty anxious to get away. You can see all the sediment from the flood of last year. So we've got a lot of decomposed granite moving through here. The river's changing constantly. We had about 5 inches of rain that fell in the canyon in about an hour's time frame. Fortunately, it's set up in the worst possible place that it could have set up. It's set up on the burn scar from the Hayman fire, which occurred in June of 2002, and it just pounded that area on those burned out, steep-sided canyon slopes. All that granite ran into the river, and it's left a long-lasting effect on our fishery. Right here, I'm sitting on one of the alluvial fans at the Emerald Pool, and tons upon tons of gravel have laid here. A lot of it's washed out. This extended out about 2/3 across the river channel here, and a lot of that has been washed into the current down below us here. So it's filled in a lot of the holes. The sediment's continuously moving. It's having a little bit of effect on the aquatic life. But overall, the fish look good. I'm not seeing skinny fish. I'm not seeing fish with big heads. So they somehow have adapted to it all. We're real blessed with a high water year this year. It did a lot of cleaning, a lot of cleansing. We haven't had a high water year since 2014. So we're very fortunate for that. These fish are definitely a little spookier than they were. I'm going to move that indicator up just a little bit. Let's move that indicator up and put just a touch more of that on that. Might do a little downstream end on that. There you go. I'll throw a little upstream end on it. There you go. Perfect. Okay, we're going to take one step out now, and we're going to see that next dark water margin right there. Get that boulder right there. Yep, just right outside that boulder right there. That's the kitchen's right there. He's going to be right in that. It's got a nice upstream min. I do more of a high stick on this now, kind of high stick with some baby mins. There you go. A little upstream min, perfect, right there. You're right in the sweet spot right now, so upstream min on it, perfect. Okay, let's do that again. That was the sweet spot right there. Okay, let's move down with him now and try to stay parallel with that fish. And now, go ahead, that's good there. Now we're just going to try to get his head up. There you go. Walk right to that fish and get him on the reel if you can. We're going to try to get his head up. That's our #1 goal now. There you go. Bring his head up for me. There you go, real hard. There you go, bring that head up. Yeah. It's one of those beautiful wild Cheeseman Canyon rainbows right there. What a fish, huh? That's a beautiful fish. Just just as wild as this canyon right here.
Thank you, Pat.
Yep, man, good job. Let's try to get another one. Okay, I pick that up and go again. Just power through that thing. There you go, good job. We just got to keep him away from that granite over there, and then we're just going to try to pin him over here in this corner. That's a beautiful fish. That's good. Actually a rainbow, isn't it? Try to just slide his head this way for me. Been an interesting day. You know, we're thinking about canceling this, but tried to sneak this in before one of the typical afternoon rain showers takes place in the canyon here today. So we got in here, we knew had our backs up against the wall with the weather, but we've been able to get a few fish today. So you can see in the background there that the clouds are really starting to develop up near the reservoir, so it's about time for us to get out of here. But gosh, I got some fish in front of me here that are suspended. They're eating, but they're challenging me, no doubt about it. So it's going to be hard to leave, but we're going to have to leave here because the weather's going to shoo us out of here.
We just emerged from the cave and we were greeted by sunshine, so weather's shaping up. So I learned how to fly fish with a friend of mine. They asked me if I wanted to go. I never even thought about it before, but figured why not try it. And the first day I just fell in love. So then I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my major in college. It was my second year. And I found that there's a major for fisheries biology. And so I explored that a little bit more. And the more I learned and the more I fly fished, the more I just fell in love with rivers and the river ecosystems and the fish and the conservation issues that they face. So I switched my degree to fisheries biology, learned how to fly fish, and at the same time was casually painting. I was painting landscapes and wildflowers and all that, but it was very casual. And I started painting trout, tried it out, and I just fell in love with capturing the details on the fish that you don't get to see when you're fishing. I practice catch and release, so you have a limited time with the fish. So I found that when I got to sit down and paint them, I got to really study the details that I don't see when I'm on the river. The first 2 years, I really focused on fish on wood, was like my thing. It's kind of what I became known for. And I love it, and it really helps me grow my skills. And then in this third year, I've started to expand a little bit. And it's really cool because I've learned how to paint the small details. My work is very detail focused. So I'm excited to take that from the fish focus to a little bit broader. A lot of river stuff, bugs. So it's just cool. You take, the same concept that you go into painting the cheek of a brown trout, you can take into painting the feathers of a blue heron or the hair of an elk. So it's really cool to just kind of mess around. And I was doing the fish on wood, but I didn't want to box myself in to do that forever. So I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm expanding, and who knows what I'll be painting in 5 years. So my ultimate goal with my art is to use it as a conservation tool, and I hope that it inspires even just one person to protect a resource that they hadn't ever thought about before. What drove me in my major as a fisheries biologist was my passion for conservation and how we can help our fisheries and the tools that we can use to preserve these beautiful places that we are so lucky to be able to go and fish in. And I think that art is a really, really powerful tool that can be used in that way. It connects people to a resource. It helps bring that beauty into people's homes and people's lives. And if you're not connected to a resource, you aren't as motivated to protect it. So I think that art is very powerful and can be used to connect people to rivers and our fisheries and these ecosystems, and therefore they'll feel more motivated and more driven to take the actions to protect it.
Yeah, fishing for trout is very important in the state of Colorado, and much of that is just due to the accessibility of all the public water that we have in the state, as well as big population centers that provide opportunities for anglers to fish fairly close to home. One of the concerns on some of our fisheries, especially the highest quality fisheries, is overuse. And there are many other places within the state that provide great fishing opportunities. So it's fairly easy to find streams that have great opportunities to fish for trout without crowding into some of the areas that are more popular.
I've seen a huge influx of anglers move to Colorado, and obviously when I first started fishing this canyon, there wasn't a lot of pressure, but pressure is becoming a bigger problem every day. But it's still a really great place despite the angling pressure, because the community respects it. They see what a fabulous fishery this is, and I think it really attracts a more serious angler to this place. So people have come to appreciate that, they've come to respect that, and the resource continues to remain strong.
We do want people to come and enjoy it, but how do we make sure that the fish are healthy? It is like a special place. I mean, I can name 3 or 4 rivers right now that people come from like around the world to fish, you know? If you're here, you need to be fishing. And it's like you could catch the fish of a lifetime here. Like I've fished with people while they caught 30-inch plus rainbow trout on a tiny, I'm not gonna say the fly, but on a tiny fly. And you look at it and you go, how is this even possible? But it's Colorado.